Hi everyone, I'm Patrick Van Hall, and this is the first video in a new series entitled 3 Minutes of Supply Chain, in which we cover different supply chain topics in just about 3 minutes. So we'd better get started. The United States inventory to sales ratio is published monthly. It's just as it sounds, the volume of inventory relative to a single dollar of sales. A perfect ratio is 1.0, with $1 of inventory being required for $1 of sales. But the ratio is lived almost exclusively between 1.2 and 1.5 almost 30 years of existence. Tracking the ratio over time is one way in which we can tell the story of the advancement of the supply chain profession. In the early years, supply chain was all about efficiency gains, as evidenced by the downward trend from 1992 until 2009. This is due to the implementation of Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, and implementations of supply chain planning software. Then the global economic downturn hit, and the ratio jumped back up to 1990s levels. Zooming in from that point forward, we can see that a sales decrease is actually what drove that trend. Starting slowly, edging down 3% year on year, then 12% down, and then it stayed down year on year for another 12 months. In total, it took 20 months for the inventory to sales ratio to recover to pre-downturn levels. Following that, the trend stayed low, but then the rise of e-commerce required that supply chains put more inventory in more places. They needed to be able to fulfill demand to anywhere, to anyone, at any time. Supply chain eventually figured that out, as it always does, and we were able to turn that trend first flat and then more toward downward, at least until COVID-19 hit. With COVID-19, as of April 2020, the inventory to sales ratio shot up to 1.7, the highest measure on the chart. Despite being at historically high levels, this wasn't an inventory issue though. Inventory decreased 2% year on year. It was a dramatic fall in sales, which decreased by more than 18% year on year, that drove the spike. So let that sink in. 18% year on year decrease from COVID-19, 3% and then 12% decrease year on year from the global economic downturn. 1.5 times worse for COVID-19. May's data was a bit more optimistic as inventory continued to trend downward slightly and sales rebounded from the previous month, and early indications are that June's data may show a similar trend. What I think about this, well, it's still really early. There's a lot of uncertainty to come. We still don't know what's going to happen with second waves. We don't know what's going to happen with elections. There is so much going on that for us to say that we know what's going to happen would be short-sighted. But what we do know is there's a lot of inventory out there, and it may not sell. So it becomes imperative on our organizations to, one, figure out what to do with this and to free up that cash so that we can reinvest it in the business. At the same time, we need to invest in our people, our process, our culture, so that we're prepared to rebound when this comes to whatever resolution that it is, whatever the now normal will be. Ultimately, supply chains are going to set this path forward. The investments we make in supply chain, in technology, in people, in process, those are the things that are going to be a competitive differentiator when the next disruption hits.